9-foot alien Gladiator was chained like a rabid dog. Only the human dared to tame her. Commander Taylor Green wiped the sweat from his bald head as he adjusted the temperature control on his heavy combat suit. Even with the advanced cooling system, the alien world's triple suns made the reinforced armor feel like an oven. His thick, dark beard was already damp with perspiration, but he maintained his composure as he followed his alien escort through the winding corridors of the infamous arena complex on Nexus Prime. "The Sovereign appreciates Earth's interest in our gladiatorial traditions, Commander," purred Ambassador Krell, his scaled skin shimmering under the harsh lighting. "Though I must admit, we rarely receive diplomatic visitors in our humble arena." Taylor kept his expression neutral, though his gut churned at the sickly sweet tone in the ambassador's voice. The mission brief had warned him about the Nexian's penchant for blood sport, but nothing could have prepared him for the reality of it. The corridors reeked of blood and fear, punctuated by distant roars and the clash of weapons. "Earth believes in understanding all aspects of potential allies' cultures," Taylor replied diplomatically. "Even the more challenging ones." Krell's lipless mouth stretched into what might have been a smile. "Ah, but you haven't seen our prize attraction yet. I believe you humans might find her particularly interesting." They emerged onto a private viewing box overlooking the massive arena. The space could easily hold 50,000 spectators, though today it was relatively empty for what Krell called a practice session. Taylor's attention was immediately drawn to the figure being led into the arena below. "Holy shit," he breathed, forgetting diplomacy for a moment. The alien female stood nearly 9 feet tall, her violet skin gleaming like polished metal under the arena lights. She wore what appeared to be a metallic bikini that did little to hide her powerful physique. Long, dark hair cascaded down her back, whipping around as she fought against the heavy chains binding her wrists and neck. But it was her eyes that caught Taylor's attention, blazing orange like molten lava, filled with a mixture of fury and something else. Something painfully human. "Magnificent, isn't she?" Krell seemed pleased by Taylor's reaction. "A Valkyrie from the Andromeda Galaxy. The last of her kind as far as we know. She's been our champion for 3 cycles now." Taylor watched as handlers released her opponent, a massive reptilian creature that moved with surprising speed for its bulk. The Valkyrie's chains were released, and she immediately dropped into a fighting stance. "You keep her chained like an animal," Taylor observed, unable to keep the edge from his voice. "Merely a precaution. She has a spirit." Krell's voice hardened slightly. "Watch." The fight was brutal but beautiful. The Valkyrie moved with deadly grace, her every motion precise despite her size. She dodged the reptilian's initial charge, using its momentum against it. Her fist connected with its jaw with enough force to crack the arena floor when the creature fell. But what struck Taylor wasn't her fighting prowess. It was the intelligence in her movements, the calculated fury in her eyes. This was no mindless beast. This was a thinking, feeling being forced to fight for others' entertainment. "How much?" The words left his mouth before he could stop them. Krell turned to him, surprise evident in his alien features. "Pardon?" "How much for her freedom?" Taylor clarified, his mind racing ahead even as his diplomatic training screamed at him to shut up. The ambassador laughed, a harsh sound like grinding metal. "Commander, surely you jest. She's our most valuable asset. Name your price." Taylor kept his eyes on the fight below, where the Valkyrie had just executed a perfect throw that sent her opponent crashing into the arena wall. "Earth has resources that might interest the Sovereign." Krell studied him for a long moment, his serpentine eyes unblinking. "You humans are unpredictable. The price would be astronomical. Try me." Below them, the Valkyrie delivered the final blow, ending the match with ruthless efficiency. As handlers approached with chains, she turned her blazing orange eyes directly to the viewing box. For a moment, Taylor felt those eyes pierce through him, filled with defiance and an unmistakable intelligence. 10 million credits, Krell finally said, his tone suggesting he expected the conversation to end there. "Plus exclusive mining rights to one of Earth's asteroid belts." Taylor didn't flinch. "Done." The ambassador's scaled face showed genuine shock for the first time. You can't be serious." "I have full diplomatic authority to negotiate on Earth's behalf." Taylor turned to face Krell fully, his voice hard. "Draw up the contracts. I'll have the credits transferred immediately." "The Sovereign will need to approve." Then get his approval. Now. Taylor let a hint of steel enter his voice. Unless you prefer I discuss with him directly how his chief ambassador refused a legitimate offer from Earth? Krell's scales rippled with agitation. I will make the arrangements. But Commander, he glanced down at the arena where handlers were struggling to restrain the Valkyrie. She's dangerous. Untamable. We've lost 3 handlers this cycle alone. I'll take my chances. The next few hours passed in a blur of bureaucratic proceedings and credit transfers. Taylor sat through it all with practiced patience, though his eyes kept drifting to the security feed showing the Valkyrie in her holding cell. She paced like a caged predator, but there was a precision to her movements that spoke of a careful observation rather than mindless agitation. Finally, Krell returned with a datapad. The Sovereign has approved the transfer. She's yours, though I maintain this is madness. He paused. We usually sedate them for transport. No. Taylor's response was immediate. No sedation, no chains either. That's suicide. Those are my terms. Krell made a sound of exasperation. Your death wish is documented. Follow me. They descended to the holding area, passing rows of cells containing various creatures. The Valkyrie's cell was at the end, heavily reinforced. She stood as they approached, her massive frame making even the spacious cells seem cramped. Stand back, Krell ordered her in the trade language. You have a new owner. The Valkyrie's eyes narrowed, focusing on Taylor with predatory intensity. He stepped forward, meeting her gaze steadily. No, he said clearly. Not an owner. You're free. Her expression didn't change, but something flickered in those molten eyes. I'm Commander Taylor Green, Earth Defense Force. I've purchased your freedom. No chains, no fights, no masters. You can walk out of here right now. This is foolish, Krell hissed. She doesn't understand. I understand perfectly. The Valkyrie spoke for the first time, her voice deep and melodious despite its edge. You expect me to believe a human would pay such a price for nothing in return? Not nothing, Taylor replied. A chance to prove that not all species are like your captors. The choice is yours. Walk out of here with me as a free being, or stay? Your decision. The Valkyrie studied him for a long moment, then moved toward the cell door with lethal grace. Krell stepped back nervously, but Taylor held his ground. She towered over him, close enough that he could feel the heat radiating from her violet skin. I accept your offer, human, she said finally, but know this. If you betray me, death will be the least of your concerns. Taylor nodded. Fair enough. Do you have a name? Calypso. Her lips curved slightly. It means untamable in my language. Fitting, Taylor replied with a slight smile. Shall we? The Earth diplomatic vessel, Intrepid, hummed quietly as it cruised through hyperspace. Taylor stood at the observation deck, watching the swirling colors of faster-than-light travel, his mind replaying the events of the past 48 hours. Behind him, he heard the distinctive sound of heavy footsteps. Calypso had a way of moving that somehow combined feline grace with raw power. Your ship is smaller than expected, she said, her deep voice carrying a hint of amusement. She'd traded her arena attire for a custom-fabricated jumpsuit that the ship's synthesizer had struggled to produce in her size. Taylor turned, finding himself once again struck by her imposing presence. Even in civilian clothes, she radiated an aura of barely contained strength. Most human ships are built to human scale. We'll have to make some adjustments. Like the ceiling, Calypso ducked slightly under a support beam, her orange eyes glinting with what might have been humor. Your species seems remarkably compact. We prefer the term efficiently sized, Taylor shot back with a slight smile. It was the first hint of banter between them since leaving Nexus Prime. Calypso moved to stand beside him at the viewport, her violet skin reflecting the ethereal lights of hyperspace. Why did you really buy my freedom, human? And don't feed me that diplomatic nonsense about proving humanity's good intentions. Taylor considered his words carefully. Because I saw something in your eyes during that fight. Intelligence, pride, pain. You weren't just surviving in that arena. You were protecting something, your dignity maybe, your sense of self. And that was worth 10 million credits in mining rights? Her tone was skeptical, but her posture had shifted slightly toward him. Freedom should be a right, not a commodity. He met her gaze steadily. And I've never been good at watching injustice happen. when I could do something about it. Ah, so you're one of those, a hero type. There was an edge to her voice, but it wasn't entirely mocking. We had those on my world too before the Nexians came. They died first. Taylor noticed how she tensed when mentioning her homeworld. Tell me about your people, the Valkyries, if you want to. For a long moment, he thought she wouldn't answer. When she did, her voice was distant, as if reaching back through painful memories. We were warriors, yes, but also scholars, artists, builders. Our cities reached into the clouds. Our ships could dance between stars. Her fists clenched. The Nexians came with their chains and their arena culture, seeing only our physical strength, our size. They wanted gladiators, not equals. You're the last? Taylor asked softly. As far as I know, 3 years in their arena, and I never saw another of my kind. She turned those burning orange eyes on him. Does that make me more valuable, Commander? A rare specimen? It makes you a survivor, he replied firmly, and my name is Taylor. Something flickered across her face, surprise perhaps, or uncertainty. She moved closer, and Taylor felt the heat radiating from her body. Taylor, she tested the name, her deep voice giving it an almost musical quality. You're either the most noble human I've ever met, or the most foolish. I've been called worse, he chuckled, usually by my superior officers. Speaking of which, Calypso's tone shifted, becoming more serious. What happens when we reach Earth? I doubt your military will be thrilled about you bringing home a 9-foot alien warrior with a history of violence. Taylor had been wondering the same thing. Officially, you're a diplomatic guest, free to choose your own path. Unofficially, he shrugged. We'll figure it out. Together, if you want. Calypso studied him with those penetrating eyes. You're not afraid of me, she stated, moving even closer. Even knowing what I'm capable of, what I've done in the arena. Should I be? Taylor held his ground, though she now towered over him. Most beings are. Even the Nexian handlers feared me, hence the chains. Her voice dropped lower, taking on a husky quality that sent an unexpected shiver down his spine. But you look at me differently. Not as a weapon or a beast or a prize? Why? The air between them seemed to crackle with tension. Taylor was acutely aware of her proximity, of the way her violet skin seemed to shimmer in the starlight, of the surprising softness in her fierce orange eyes. And because that's not who you are, he said quietly. Those things were forced on you. I'm more interested in who you choose to be. Now that you're free, Calypso's hand moved with surprising gentleness to touch his face, her fingers tracing his beard. And if I choose to be dangerous? You already are dangerous, Taylor replied, his heart racing but his voice steady. That's not the same as being cruel or savage. Those were chains too, weren't they? She withdrew her hand slowly, something vulnerable flickering across her features before being masked. You're a strange one, Taylor Green. Your size belies your strength. I'll take that as a compliment. As you should. She moved back slightly, but the tension in the air remained. Your quarters on this ship. They're too small for me. You can have my cabin, Taylor offered immediately. I'll take the crew quarters. Always the noble one. Calypso's lips curved in what might have been her first genuine smile. But I was thinking we might find a more equitable arrangement. Taylor felt his pulse quicken at her tone. Are you proposing something, Calypso? Perhaps. She turned to leave, her movements deliberately slow and graceful. Consider it a test of your diplomatic skills, Commander. As she reached the door, she paused. And Taylor, thank you for seeing me. After she left, Taylor released a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. The observation deck suddenly felt very empty, yet somehow still charged with her presence. He turned back to the viewport, watching the swirling colors of hyperspace, but his mind was filled with visions of violet skin and burning orange eyes. The ship's aim chimed softly. Commander, we're 6 hours from Earth space. Shall I prepare your report to command? Later, Taylor replied, still staring into the cosmic dance outside. Much later. The ship's environmental controls hummed softly as Taylor adjusted them for the third time that night. The temperature kept rising inexplicably, though he suspected it had less to do with the systems and more to do with the tension that had been building between him and his unusual passenger. Calypso stood in the doorway of his quarters, her powerful frame silhouetted against the corridor lights. She'd been watching him with increasing intensity over the past few hours, her orange eyes seeming to glow in the dimness. "Your species has such fascinating customs," she said, her deep voice carrying a hint of something new. "Desire, perhaps. All these careful dances around what you really want." Taylor turned to face her, his pulse quickening at her proximity. "And what do you think I want?" She moved into the room with fluid grace, the door sliding shut behind her. "The same thing I do. Though you humans seem to need so many words first." "Words can be important," Taylor replied, though his mouth had gone dry, "especially between different species." Calypso's laugh was rich and warm. "In the arena, we learned to read body language better than any spoken word, and yours, Taylor Green, has been screaming at me since that first day." She reached out, trailing a finger along his jaw. The touch sent electricity through his entire body. "Your heart rate increases when I'm near. Your pupils dilate. Your temperature rises." Her smile turned predatory. "Did you think I wouldn't notice?" "I wasn't trying to hide it," Taylor managed, his voice rougher than usual. "But I also wasn't going to presume." "Another human custom?" She moved closer, the heat from her violet skin radiating between them. "On my world, when two warriors felt this kind of attraction, they acted on it. No presumptions needed." Taylor found himself backed against the wall, though he felt no fear, only a burning anticipation. "I'm not exactly a warrior by your standards." "No?" Calypso's hand moved to his chest, feeling his heartbeat through his shirt. "You faced down an arena full of Nexians to free me. You looked me in the eye without flinching when beings twice your size cower. That's warrior enough for me." Their size difference should have been awkward, but somehow it wasn't. Every movement between them felt natural, primal, as if their bodies knew something their minds were still figuring out. "There are practical considerations," Taylor said, though his hands had found their way to her waist. Calypso's laugh was lower this time, more intimate. "Always the diplomat. Trust me, Taylor, our species are more compatible than you might think. The Valkyrie were known for taking lovers from many races." "Is that what this would be?" He met her burning gaze. "Just physical compatibility?" She paused, something vulnerable flickering in those fierce eyes. "No," she admitted softly. "This is something else. Something I haven't felt since before the chains." Taylor reached up to touch her face, marveling at how she leaned into his palm despite her tremendous strength. "Then let's not rush it. We have time." "Time?" she repeated, as if tasting the word. "That's something I haven't had in years. Everything in the arena was immediate, desperate." Her hands moved to frame his face. "But this feels different." Their first kiss was like a supernova, explosive, yet creating something entirely new. The size difference meant Calypso had to bend down while Taylor stretched up, but neither seemed to mind. Her lips were surprisingly soft, tasting of stardust and freedom. What followed was a dance of discovery, each learning the other's body with reverent curiosity. Their clothing found its way to the floor piece by piece, revealing the stark contrast between them. His battle-scarred human flesh against her smooth violet skin, his compact strength against her towering power. Hours later, they lay entwined on the reinforced bed, Calypso's head resting on Taylor's chest as he stroked her long dark hair. The ship's artificial gravity seemed to pulse with the aftermath of their passion. "Well," Calypso murmured, tracing patterns on his skin, "it seems humans have some warrior qualities after all." Taylor chuckled, the sound rumbling through both their bodies. "Was that a compliment? Don't let it go to your head." She propped herself up on an elbow to look at him, her orange eyes soft with post-coital warmth. "Though I must admit, you continue to surprise me. Good surprises, I hope." "Very good." She kissed him again, gentler this time. "You know, in the arena they tried everything to break my spirit, chains, pain, humiliation. But you..." She touched his face, wonderingly. "You've tamed something in me I thought was lost forever. Not through force or dominance, but through trust," Taylor finished for her. "It goes both ways, you know. I trust you too. Even though I could snap you like a twig?" There was humor in her voice, but also genuine curiosity. "Especially because of that." He pulled her closer. "You choose not to. Just like I choose to see you as you are, not as they tried to make you." Calypso was quiet for a moment, her fingers still tracing patterns on his chest. "I never thought I'd find this kind of connection again, especially not with a human." "Life has a way of surprising us." Taylor kissed her forehead. "Though I have to admit, diplomatic training didn't cover this particular scenario." Her laugh vibrated through both their bodies. "I imagine not. What will your superiors say when they find out?" "They'll adapt." His tone grew serious. "You're not a secret to be hidden, Calypso. You're not a possession or a diplomatic asset. You're—" He searched for the right words. "Yours," she finished simply. "As you are mine. In the old ways of my people, this kind of joining was sacred. Two warriors choosing each other, becoming stronger together than apart." Taylor felt something profound shift between them at her words. This wasn't just physical attraction or even emotional connection. It was something deeper, more primal, yet somehow more civilized than anything he'd known before. "We should probably get dressed," he said reluctantly. "We'll be reaching Earth soon." Calypso made no move to leave his embrace. "Soon isn't now," she purred, her orange eyes glowing with renewed desire. "And I believe we have more diplomatic relations to explore." Earth's glittering skyline stretched before them as Taylor led Calypso into their new home, a specially modified penthouse in New Singapore's diplomatic quarter. The ceiling height had been doubled to accommodate her frame, and custom furniture filled the spacious rooms. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a spectacular view of the city's famous vertical gardens and the distant spaceport. "Your people have been surprisingly accommodating," Calypso observed, running her hand along a reinforced countertop sized for her proportions. Taylor smiled, watching her explore the space. "Earth's diplomatic corps takes care of its own. Besides, you're something of a celebrity now." "The former gladiator and the diplomat," she mused, turning to face him with a predatory grace that still made his heart race. "We've certainly given the media plenty to talk about." Their arrival on Earth 2 weeks ago had caused quite a stir. Footage of their first public appearance, her towering violet form beside his more compact human frame, had gone viral across the galaxy. Their obvious affection for each other had sparked endless speculation and debate. "Speaking of talk," Taylor approached her, reaching up to touch her face. "The medical results came back today." Calypso's orange eyes widened slightly. They'd visited the xenobiology department at the request of Earth scientists, curious about their physical compatibility after several passionate weeks together. "And?" Her voice held an unusual note of vulnerability. "It seems the Valkyrie's legendary adaptability extends to reproduction." He watched her face carefully. "We're going to have a child." The news hung between them for a moment. Then Calypso laughed. A deep, joyous sound that seemed to fill the entire apartment. She lifted Taylor effortlessly, spinning him around before pulling him into a passionate kiss. "A warrior child," she murmured against his lips, "born of freedom and choice, not chains and combat." "The first of their kind," Taylor agreed, still held aloft in her strong arms. "Though the doctors are quite excited about studying the pregnancy." Calypso's expression turned thoughtful as she set him down. "On my world, pregnancy was considered a time of great power. Warrior mothers were especially revered." She placed a hand on her still flat stomach. "I never thought I'd experience this, after everything." Taylor wrapped his arms around her waist, or as much of it as he could reach. "You've come a long way from that arena." "We both have." She kissed him again, slower this time. "Though I must admit, I miss certain aspects of combat. The physical challenge, the rush of victory." "Well," Taylor grinned, "I might have a solution for that. The Earth Defense Force has offered you a position as a combat instructor. Apparently your arena experience could be valuable for training our special forces." Calypso's eyes lit up with interest. "Teaching humans to fight? That could be entertaining. Just try not to break too many of them," he chuckled. "We need our soldiers in one piece." "I'll be gentle," she promised with a predatory smile that suggested otherwise. "Besides, I need to keep my skills sharp. Our child will need proper training when they're older." The casual mention of their shared future sent warmth spreading through Taylor's chest. "Speaking of the future," he took her hand, leading her to the balcony. The setting sun painted the sky in shades of purple that complemented her skin. "There's something else we should discuss." Calypso raised an eyebrow, sensing his sudden nervousness. "More surprises, diplomat?" Taylor took a deep breath. "In human culture, when two people love each other and are starting a family," he pulled out a small box, opening it to reveal a ring size for her larger fingers. "They often make it official." "Marriage," Calypso said softly, recognizing the concept from their cultural exchanges. "A formal binding of warriors." "Something like that," Taylor smiled, "though usually with less actual combat involved." "Usually?" Her eyes sparkled with mischief. "Perhaps we should incorporate some Valkyrie traditions, a ritual battle to prove our worth to each other." "I think we've proven our worth already," Taylor pointed out, "unless you're looking for an excuse to throw me around some more." "I never need an excuse for that." She pulled him close, her powerful frame enveloping him. "Yes, Taylor Green, I will marry you by both our customs." The kiss that followed was interrupted by a chime from their communication system. The holographic display showed Admiral Chandler, Taylor's superior officer. "Commander Green," the Admiral's image flickered to life, "and Lady Calypso, congratulations are in order, I hear, both on the engagement and the unexpected addition." "News travels fast," Taylor observed dryly, "when it involves Earth's most famous interspecies couple." At light speed, Chandler's expression turned serious. "The Galactic Council has taken notice. They're calling you both living proof of peaceful integration. There's talk of using your story to promote better relations between species." Calypso's arm tightened protectively around Taylor. "We're not propaganda tools." "No," Chandler agreed. "You're something better. You're hope. Proof that differences can be bridged, that love can overcome prejudice and fear." He smiled slightly. "The fact that you're expecting the first known human Valkyrie child only adds to the symbolism." Taylor felt Calypso relax slightly against him. "What exactly are you proposing, Admiral?" "Nothing too demanding. Some public appearances, perhaps a documentary about your journey from the arena to Earth. The Council believes your story could help prevent future conflicts between species." "From gladiator to diplomat," Calypso mused, "life takes strange turns." "We'll consider it," Taylor told Chandler. "But right now, we have a wedding to plan." After the Admiral signed off, they stood together on the balcony, watching the city lights come alive below them. Calypso's hand rested on her stomach, while Taylor's arm wrapped around her waist. "You've given me so much," she said softly. "Freedom, love, a future, a child." "You've given me just as much," Taylor replied. "A partner, a warrior's heart, a new perspective on strength." Calypso turned to face him, her orange eyes glowing in the twilight. "Remember when you first saw me in chains? Did you ever imagine we'd end up here?" "Honestly, no." He reached up to touch her face. "But I knew you were worth fighting for. And now?" She pulled him closer, her powerful frame radiating heat and desire. "Now," Taylor smiled, "I know you were worth everything. The price, the risks, the challenges ahead, all of it." Their kiss was witnessed only by the stars above, the same stars that had once seemed like prison bars to a chained gladiator, but now represented endless possibilities for two warriors who had found love across the vastness of space. The ancient Valkyrie wedding grounds had been recreated in Earth's largest holopark, transforming the space into a breathtaking alien landscape. Towering crystal spires caught the morning light, casting rainbow patterns across the ceremonial arena where Taylor and Calypso stood facing each other. The blend of human and Valkyrie traditions had drawn unprecedented attention, with dignitaries from across the galaxy in attendance. Calypso wore a stunning combination of traditional Earth white and Valkyrie battle regalia, a flowing dress modified to accommodate her growing belly, with ceremonial armor plates that highlighted her warrior heritage. Her violet skin seemed to shimmer with an inner light, and her orange eyes blazed with emotion as she gazed down at Taylor. Taylor, dressed in a formal military uniform with Valkyrie's ceremonial additions, felt his breath catch at the sight of her. Even 4 months pregnant, she moved with deadly grace as she approached him for the traditional pre-wedding combat dance. "Ready to prove yourself worthy, little warrior?" she teased, her voice carrying across the arena. "Always," where he replied, settling into a fighting stance. The months of training together had taught him how to move with her, despite their size difference. The combat dance was more ritual than actual fighting, a symbolic representation of how they'd met and grown together. As they moved through the choreographed sequences, their bodies told their story. The initial confrontation, the building trust, the eventual partnership. The assembled crowd watched in awe as the 9-foot warrior and her human partner performed the ancient rites. Their movements were perfectly synchronized, a testament to countless hours of practice and their deep connection. "You've come far from that first day in the arena," Calypso murmured during a close pass, her hands gentle despite her strength. "We both have," Taylor replied, executing a complex dodge that drew appreciative murmurs from the Valkyrie elders who'd been located and invited to witness the ceremony. The dance concluded with Calypso lifting Taylor in a traditional victory pose. But instead of the traditional submission gesture, they met in a kiss that drew cheers from the crowd. It was a deliberate break from old traditions, a statement that their union was one of equals, not conqueror and conquered. The Earth Minister stepped forward as they separated, beginning the human portion of the ceremony. "We gathered today to witness not just the union of two beings, but the bridging of worlds." As the minister spoke, Taylor found himself lost in Calypso's eyes. Her hand rested protectively over her stomach, where their child grew, a miracle that had amazed the medical community and given hope to other interspecies couples. The exchange of vows combined Earth's traditional promises with Valkyrie warrior oaths. Calypso's voice rang clear and strong as she spoke the ancient words in her native tongue, and then translated, "I bind my strength to yours, my battles to yours, my victory to yours. Where you bleed, I bleed. Where you triumph, I triumph. My warrior heart beats with yours until the stars fade." Taylor's response, carefully practiced in the Valkyrie language, brought tears to the eyes of the surviving elders. "I match your strength with mine, your battles with mine, your victory with mine. My spirit dances with yours in combat and peace. My human heart joins with yours until the last sun sets." The ring exchange took on new meaning with the addition of Valkyrie warrior bands, metal forged from their combined ceremonial weapons, sized to fit their different frames but matching in design. When after the ceremony, during the celebration, they found a quiet moment in the Hollow Park's garden simulation. Calypso's hand hadn't left her stomach all day. "She's active today," she said softly. "Perhaps she approves of the warrior dance." "She?" Taylor raised an eyebrow. "The doctors haven't told us the gender yet." "A mother knows." Calypso pulled him close, her powerful frame curving protectively around him. "She has your spirit. I can feel it. Strong, stubborn, unafraid of challenges." "Poor kid," Taylor chuckled, "stuck with both our stubborn streaks." "She'll be magnificent." Calypso's voice held absolute certainty. "The first of a new kind of warrior, born of love instead of combat, of choice instead of chains." Their moment was interrupted by the arrival of Dr. Patel, the xenobiologist who'd been monitoring Calypso's pregnancy. "Sorry to intrude," Rashia said, tablet in hand, "but I have those test results you were waiting for." Calypso tensed slightly. They'd been concerned about potential complications given the unprecedented nature of the pregnancy. "Everything's perfectly healthy," Patel assured them quickly. "In fact, the fetus shows remarkable stability. The blending of human and Valkyrie DNA has produced some fascinating adaptations. She's developing characteristics of both species in perfect harmony." "She?" Taylor grinned at Calypso. "Seems you were right." "Of course I was." Calypso's smile was radiant. "A daughter to carry both our legacies." "There's more," Patel continued excitedly. "The genetic analysis suggests she'll likely grow to about 7 feet tall, a perfect middle ground between your heights. She's already showing signs of enhanced strength and resilience, but with human adaptability and cognitive patterns." "The best of both worlds," Taylor mused, his hand joining Calypso's over their growing child. "Precisely. She's living proof that our species are more compatible than anyone imagined. The implications for interspecies relations are enormous." After the doctor left, Calypso turned to Taylor with a predatory gleam in her eye. "Speaking of compatibility," she pulled him into a shadowed alcove, her powerful hands gentle as they explored his formal uniform. "Here," Taylor laughed breathlessly. "Half the galaxy's diplomatic corps is right around the corner." "Let them talk," Calypso purred. "Besides, it's a Valkyrie tradition, consummating the union wherever the passion strikes. For fertility, I think we've got that covered already, he pointed out, though his hands were already responding to her touch. Then consider it practice for making siblings. Her kiss was fierce and possessive. Our daughter will need warriors to command. Later, as they danced at the reception, Calypso's impressive form moving with surprising grace, despite her pregnancy, Taylor reflected on their journey from a chained gladiator and a diplomatic mission to this moment, married, expecting a child, pioneering a new future for both their species. "What are you thinking about, my little warrior?" Calypso murmured, reading his expression. "About chains," he replied honestly, "and how love can break them more effectively than any key." Her orange eyes softened as she pulled him closer. "Then let's forge something new from those broken chains, a legacy of freedom, strength, and choice." "For our daughter," Taylor agreed. "For all who come after her," Calypso added. "Now, husband, take me home. Your pregnant warrior wife has plans for you that aren't suitable for diplomatic audiences." Taylor laughed, letting her lead him away from the celebration. Their future stretched before them, bright with possibility and love. Proof that even the wildest heart could be tamed by understanding, respect, and genuine connection. 5 years had passed since that fateful day in the arena, and Taylor still found himself marveling at how dramatically his life had changed. Standing in the training yard of the Earth Defense Forces Special Combat Division, he watched with pride as Calypso demonstrated advanced combat techniques to a group of wide-eyed recruits. Her violet skin gleamed with exertion, her movements still as graceful and lethal as ever, despite having given birth to their daughter Callisto just 4 years ago. "Remember," Calypso's powerful voice carried across the yard, "true strength isn't about size or raw power. It's about understanding your opponent, adapting to their style, and using their expectations against them." She gestured to Taylor. "Commander Green, would you assist me in demonstrating?" The recruits murmured excitedly. These demonstrations had become legendary within the EDF. Taylor stepped forward, removing his formal uniform jacket to reveal the training armor beneath. Even after years together, the sight of his wife's predatory smile still sent shivers down his spine. "Still willing to dance with me, little warrior?" she purred, loud enough for only him to hear. "Always," he replied, settling into a fighting stance. Their sparring session was a beautiful display of their unique fighting style, a blend of Valkyrie power and human adaptability. Taylor dodged and weaved around Calypso's powerful strikes, while she demonstrated how to control and direct superior strength against a smaller opponent. "Daddy, Mommy!" A clear voice rang out across the training yard. Callisto, their daughter, had escaped her caretaker again. At 7 feet tall, the 4-year-old already towered over most humans, her skin a lighter shade of violet than her mother's, with Taylor's dark eyes but Calypso's fierce intensity. The sparring session paused as Callisto bounded across the yard, displaying the extraordinary agility she'd inherited from both parents. Calypso caught their daughter mid-leap, spinning her around with a warrior's grace. "Little star," Calypso chided gently, "you know you're supposed to wait until training is finished." "But the delegates are here early," Callisto announced proudly. "Uncle Chandler said to fetch you both." Taylor and Calypso exchanged glances. The Galactic Council's annual review of interspecies integration programs was scheduled for today. Their family had become something of a symbol for successful cross-species relationships. "Class dismissed," Taylor announced to the relieved recruits. "Study the recordings of today's session. We'll continue tomorrow." As they walked to the diplomatic wing, Callisto between them holding both their hands, Taylor reflected on how their story had influenced the galaxy. The success of their relationship and Callisto's birth had led to revolutionary changes in interspecies law and social attitudes. The brutal arena culture of Nexus Prime had been outlawed, replaced with regulated sporting events that celebrated skill rather than bloodshed. In the conference room, Admiral Chandler waited with representatives from 20 different species. Callisto immediately drew attention, as she always did, living proof that love could transcend biological barriers. "The Green family," Chandler announced warmly, "our greatest success story." "We prefer to think of ourselves as just the beginning," Calypso replied diplomatically. She'd learned much about political navigation over the years, though her warrior's directness still showed through. "There are many others following our path now." "Indeed," a Nexian delegate agreed, unable to meet Calypso's fierce orange eyes. Their species had undergone significant cultural reforms since the arena days. "The integration programs you've helped establish have shown remarkable results. The meeting proceeded smoothly, with Callisto occasionally interjecting surprisingly insightful comments about her experiences in the new mixed species education program. Taylor watched his daughter with pride. She had inherited both her mother's strength and his diplomatic instincts. Later that evening, in their home overlooking the city, Calypso stood on their balcony watching the sunset. Taylor joined her, wrapping his arms around her waist as best he could. "Callisto's asleep," he reported, "after making me tell the arena story again." Calypso laughed softly. She never tires of hearing how her father dared to free the wild gladiator. "I prefer to think of it as recognizing the person behind the chains." He pressed a kiss to her shoulder. "Though I have to admit, you're still pretty wild." "Only for you," she purred, turning to face him with that familiar predatory grace. "Care to test that theory?" Their passion had only grown stronger over the years, their size difference becoming a source of excitement rather than obstacle. They'd learned each other's bodies thoroughly, finding ways to please that transcended physical limitations. "What about the morning briefing?" Taylor asked, already knowing he'd give in. "Let them wait," Calypso growled playfully, lifting him with ease. "A warrior takes what she wants." "Is that what I did? Took what I wanted?" Her expression softened. "No, my love. You gave me what I needed. Freedom, respect, love, a family." She touched her stomach meaningfully. "And soon another warrior to add to our legacy." Taylor's eyes widened. "You mean—" "The doctors confirmed it yesterday. Callisto will have a sibling in 8 months." Her smile was radiant. "A boy this time, they think." Their celebration was interrupted by a small voice. "Daddy." "Mommy." "I had a dream about the arena again." Callisto stood in the doorway, looking uncertain despite her size. They immediately went to her, creating a family embrace that spoke of protection and unconditional love. "The arena is gone, little star," Calypso assured her. "And in its place, we've built something better, something stronger." "Like our family?" Callisto asked sleepily. "Exactly like our family," Taylor agreed, sharing a loving look with his wife over their daughter's head. "Built on choice, not chains. On love, not fear." Later, as they laid together in their specially made bed, Calypso traced patterns on Taylor's chest. "Did you ever imagine that day in the arena, that we'd end up here?" "Honestly, no," he admitted. "But I knew you were worth any risk. And now I know that love is the strongest force in the galaxy." He placed his hand over hers, strong enough to break chains, change cultures, create new life. "Poetic for a warrior," she teased, but her orange eyes shone with emotion. "I learned from the best." He pulled her down for a kiss. "My beautiful, wild, perfectly untamable wife." "Untamable?" She laughed deeply. "I seem to recall someone managing quite well." "Never tamed," he corrected. "Just loved. There's a difference." As they drifted to sleep, the stars shining through their window both reflected on their journey. From a chance encounter in an alien arena to this moment, building a family, changing the galaxy, proving that love could transcend any boundary. Their story had become legend, but the reality was better than any tale. They had found in each other not just love, but understanding, respect, and the freedom to be themselves. Their children would grow up in a galaxy more open and accepting because two beings dared to challenge conventions and choose love over fear. The wild gladiator and the diplomatic warrior had forged something entirely new, a legacy of love that would echo through generations, proving that the strongest chains were those freely chosen, bound not by metal but by hearts beating as one.